All right. What's up, Kevin? Welcome back to the podcast. We'll talk about that in a sec. But good to have you, man. How are things going?
Everything's going good, man. Appreciate you having me back. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. So you just mentioned it before we were recording. We were catching up a little bit. You mentioned the last time you were on the show. You might have been on twice, or maybe just once. But the last time when we ran a different podcast, you were on. It was almost 3 years ago to the day, and we're going to talk about some of the changes. But man, I feel like things have changed a ton in the last 3 years,
Oh yeah.
just from us talking and seeing your stuff. But maybe fill us in on what's changed in your life and business from that time 3 years ago to now, and then we'll talk about what you're working on currently.
Yeah, it's funny. So that was 3 years ago. I was kind of rebuilding my real estate company after it kind of collapsed the first time around and was finally getting some traction with wholesaling and flipping to where I was seeing consistent checks. And on that podcast, I mentioned I had like a Q1 revenue of like $7,800 or $9,000, something like that, where it was like super low and struggling. And then I had just celebrated having a $75,000 quarter in profit. Nowadays, since it's not just me being a solopreneur anymore, I've got an actual company and a business partner. We just crossed $100,000 month, and that's being pretty consistent these days with wholesaling and flipping with our Joe Home Buyer company. So things have definitely changed. I've scaled from being solo to have an actual company, which is how it should be these days, and we're kind of rocking and rolling from there.
Okay, a lot to dig in there. The first thing I want to ask about is you mentioned that company, your words, kind of collapsed. The first one 3 years ago,
Yeah.
or it was kind of a slow build or slow rebuild. Could you just maybe talk about some of the things that didn't work then, or that maybe led to like some struggles or challenges that you had before things started getting better and picking up?
Yeah, so I started in real estate early 2019 with just buying a couple flips that year. And that's a good way to get going, kind of ramping up. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I picked a business partner who was a contractor who was good at the start. And then after a few deals, it got worse and worse and worse. So the first year and a half, we did, a handful of flips and a couple went well. And then a couple ended up going 12 months, 13 months, zero profit. Maybe we made a few thousand bucks. And so that first year and a half was just a struggle. I wasn't really making any money. I wasn't making any traction. And so I just had to completely restart after that to figure out how to build an actual business. And that's how I got more into wholesaling. Since wholesaling, you can get paid a lot quicker, and flipping, one bad flip can ruin your year.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So, walk us through what the business looks like today as far as the size of the company, the size of the deals. Just give us some context or perspective on what the company is.
Yeah, so the past couple of years, I built up a pretty good wholesaling business where it was just me solo. I was working all the leads, I was doing all the dispo, all the acquisition, everything. And I had a couple good years in a row, built it up, a few $100,000 a year profit. Super happy with it. But I just found myself at the end of each year just being super burnt out. Like I felt like by the time November, December hit, I was exhausted. I wasn't getting enough family time. I was working all day long. And so I was just really trying to figure out how to even get to that next step. Like, how do you go from 250,000 to a million? And if anyone who's done business before, you can't get there by yourself. You need a team, whether that's a business partner or just employees. Like, you have to have some sort of team. So randomly enough, a client of mine who we kind of become friends, he was a realtor client of mine. I helped him buy a couple properties in town. He calls me up and says, "Hey, I'm getting into wholesaling in Louisville. I'm buying into this franchise called Joe Home Buyer." And to me, since I'd been doing it by myself for a few years, I was like, dude, you're about to spend 50 grand on a franchise for to wholesale. Like, you could put that money to work and get a lot of leads for 50 grand. So I kind of laughed at him and was like, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but I guess good luck with it. He calls me. We kind of talk over the month as he gets going. He starts doing pretty well, and I get to the point where I have all these leads sitting in CRM. And what good is a lead if you're not working it? But with me being a flipper, a wholesaler, a realtor, and rental property owner, and a dad and husband, I just don't have enough time to work my leads. So I call him up and be like, "Hey man, if I give you my CRM and you work these leads, do you want to do like a 60-40 split?"
And just real quick, were these buyer or seller leads that you had?
These were seller leads.
Seller leads. So
These are
these are
leads that
people that
maybe came
want to.
through. Yeah, they came through like a Facebook ad I was running, or maybe even through like direct mail, people I'd spoken to in the past, but they
Got
were
it.
just sitting there.
There are
Maybe I got
people
one.
that potentially want to sell their homes, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Distressed sellers.
you go to him and say, 60-40 split if you could work these leads, better than nothing. They're not being touched or worked right now.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
And for him, it was a good deal, potentially free money. To me, it was a good deal, someone to work my leads.
Yeah.
And so we start doing that. And I think within the first 2 months, he locks up 4 contracts from these old leads. And I was just like, all right, you're a newbie and you're doing this. You're doing really well. And so it kind of piqued my interest more on Joe Homebuyer to kind of see how he's taken off so quickly. Um, and I just kind of learned that it's a super good program where it's a franchise, but as opposed to like Home Investors and some other wholesaling franchises or home buying franchises out there, really Joe Homebuyer's goal is to turn you into a business owner. They want to get you to that $1 million revenue and higher mark. So they want to train you to become a business owner, how to hire, how to work leads properly. They just pretty much teach you how to be a home buying business. And it's something I just hadn't seen before because all my training was YouTube or meetups or reading books. I just never had any formal training, which you don't see a lot of real estate investors getting out there unless they're paying for these crazy gurus. So it was kind of just more and more working with my partner Mike. He was crushing it. He was closing deals for me, and I started doing all the boots in the ground work for him. And so we just started closing a lot of deals together. And so eventually, March of this year, so 2024, we kind of made the agreement like I need to buy into this. Let's just be 50-50 partners. And so I bought into his franchise, and now we're both running the Louisville Joe Homebuyer branch.
Awesome, man. So, just a little more context on the deal side, the number of deals, or you could talk whatever numbers you're comfortable with. What does that look like now? You mentioned a little bit before, but how many deals or revenue, if you look at it weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, just again to give us some kind of idea of the business.
Yeah, when I was by myself, I was doing, I don't know, 1 to 2 deals pretty regularly per month, 3 to 4 if it was like a killer month. And since we partnered up, we're doing on average 5 to 6 on a regular month. And then October, November, we both did, what was it? I think we did 10 contracts in October, 12 contracts in November. So, I mean, it's a significant improvement,
Wow.
which is what you want to see. When you partner up with someone, you're splitting your income. You don't just want to double it. You want to 10x it. And that's what we've been able to do so far. Did you lose me?
Yeah, sorry. You want to just say that one more time? I think I got most of it, but maybe like the last 10 seconds.
Yeah. So we were doing, when I was by myself, I was doing about 1 to 2 deals a month, maybe 3 to 4 on a super good month. And nowadays with Mike and with Joe Homebuyer, our average months are probably 5 to 6 deals. And the past couple months, we've done 10 to 12 deals. So
That's
it's,
awesome.
you don't just want to 2x when you get a partner. You really want to 10x your business. And that's what we've been able to do working this Joe Homebuyer program.
Got it. That's awesome. Yeah, you see so many people, they partner with someone, it's the wrong type of partner or just a partner with similar skills, and not only do they not make more money, they might make less or just
You're right.
go out of business. So that's really cool to hear that you guys.
And I had such a bad experience, obviously, with my first partner, who I just kind of blindly chose. That we really treated it. When I was open with Mike, I was like, "Hey, man, like, had this experience. Let's take this super slow." So we almost treated it like a courtship. We like, worked together for 6 months on a very light basis, just kind of saying we're going to do this and that, just to kind of feel each other out. And once we actually realized that we have matching personalities and really good qualities that work off each other, that's when we kind of made it official.
Sounds like you guys had matching personalities, but still had different skills to bring to the table. Is that true?
For sure, yeah. So he's fully on the acquisition side. He's out of state, so he works remotely. So that's perfect for him to sit on the phones all day. He's calling the leads. He's doing a lot of the training with our new employees, and I'm still boots on the ground. So I do all the dispositions. I'm handling project management of the flips, dealing with our contractors, dealing with the real estate meetups, everything that you can do in person. And that's how it works out really well based on our personalities.
That's really cool, man. I guess I was going to talk about this later, but while we're on it, is there any advice you have for people I guess we'll do 2 parts here, that are considering partnering with someone? I talk to a lot of people, I'm sure you do too, and they're like, yeah, I struggle to do this on my own, and I maybe I'll have more confidence with a partner, or I just want to have someone that I could bounce ideas with. Any advice or thoughts on that person out there thinking about partnering up with someone?
Yeah, I'd say start with just doing joint ventures. Do a JV on a couple deals here and there. You obviously want to be super slow to pick a partner. You don't want to be like me and get stuck tied financially to someone who ends up be terrible.
Hmm.
So do like what we did with Joe Homebuyers, take it slow, find that right partner. But a good place to start is just joint venture. If you're a new wholesaler struggling to, I mean, maybe you just don't have enough buyers. There's plenty of wholesalers you can go to and be like, hey, I've got this killer deal. Can you help me dispo this? And we split it, whatever split you want. And most wholesalers are going to say, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I gotcha. So just for those that don't know, JV, it's basically just one deal at a time.
Correct.
You're
Yeah.
not coming into an agreement with someone that, hey, everything that each of us does, we're going to be 50-50 on. It's
Right.
okay, one deal, let's see how it goes, see if we like each other. If we still do, then we do another, and then we can formalize things later on. Sound about right?
Yeah, exactly. And what I found too, like having a partner is awesome. Like you said, it's just nice to bounce ideas back and forth. It's nice to be able to sleep better at night knowing that all the liability is not just on you to mess up a business. Because this business and like a lot of entrepreneurship can be super lonely. I
Hmm.
mean, there's days before I had a business partner where you might go all day long and you don't talk to anyone because you're just grinding away.
Hmm.
And then you get home and you're just running your mouth to your spouse, and they're exhausted too, and they don't want to listen to you talk real estate all day. But it can be super lonely if you don't have the right people around you. Get that tribe to be able to talk to. So having a business
100%.
partner helps a lot in that regard.
100%. We'll come back to that, but I feel like that could be an area that maybe the franchise that you joined and the team that you joined like can help with some of that support, but also not in a bad way take away anything that you're trying to do. So
Right.
that's important. On the actual like your people and team now, it sounds like it's you and one other partner. Is there anyone else on your team that helps with the day to day or any other responsibilities in the company?
Yeah, so right now we have one acquisitions guy, Zach. We hired him. He's been with us about 5 months now. He's been killing it. Super happy with him. We're looking to hire an admin person beginning of January to kind of take every bit of non-sales related task or non-money making task away from me and Mike. We'll be hiring that soon. And then potentially we'll be hiring another lead manager, probably someone else local that can just help with the acquisition side.
Got it. And when you say you have the person doing acquisitions now, is that mainly they're doing cold calling, lead follow up, or are they running like Facebook ads? What does that person do for you?
Yeah, so our marketing, we've kind of tailored this over the year to figure out what's been working and what hasn't. Is we don't do a lot of cold calling. The only cold calling we'll do is if we're driving for dollars and we just happen to see a beat up property that we want to call on the spot. But otherwise, the most success we've had is direct mail. So we're doing 4,000 mailers a month, typically sending to like probate leads, and then some of your normal vacant list, tired landlords. But the probate leads of what we've seen a lot of success with. So those people are calling us. So our acquisitions guy and Mike too, they'll be the ones taking those phone calls. Excuse me. So they're taking those calls, trying to answer them on the spot. Because
Hmm.
obviously, if someone's calling us, like, and you miss that call, you may just miss that opportunity. They may be calling some other company.
For sure.
So that's their goal is to answer those calls. But we're also working Facebook ads. So we're getting a couple of Facebook leads every couple of days. So they're trying to call those super quick. And then this year we invested heavily into PPC and SEO. So we're working all those Google ads, and that's been a huge game changer too. Just having those leads coming directly to us. So the more organic leads we can bring in, the better, because then you don't have angry people screaming at you. So that's been working. So that's their job is anytime a lead comes in, they got to jump on it as fast as possible and try to get that appointment same day or within the next day.
I gotcha. With those marketing channels, something that I've talked to other owners about and heard different opinions on, and even in my own business, did you spend the time to figure out those channels yourself, or did you hire someone that had experience or work with an agency? For example, PPC, SEO, there's a whole world of that. It's robust. It could be complicated. The ads might need to be updated or, copywriting needs to be tweaked. How did you think about that? Hire it, learn it, or work with an agency or something else?
I've always taken the agency approach. I've just always thought I have so much going on. I don't need to learn another skill. And all that Facebook ads and PPC SEO, that's a whole industry. That's like learning an entirely different job. So to me, that's just like, that's more work than I want to do. I'd rather pay someone. So we partner with an agency that set up all our PPC and SEO. We've used a couple different agencies for Facebook ads. We've kind of bounced around to see who gave us success and what didn't work. But yeah, I've definitely gone the agency approach to kind of handle all that marketing, and then we kind of tailor it as we go.
Gotcha. And just because people are curious and it's the nuts and bolts of the business, on let's say the agency side, we'll talk about other, I guess, comp models later, but with the agency side, do you pay mostly a base rate or do you pay some type of base and percentage, or is there some incentive for them to do a better job or drive more leads for you?
Yeah, it's a base rate, and then there is an incentive piece to it. It's a better question for my partner, Mike. He
Okay.
handles a lot of the marketing side, but it is a base rate for the most part. And that rate does go up kind of depending on how many leads we're getting each month and the quality of leads. So there is some internal audit to that too. So we're letting them know whether these leads are good or not.
I gotcha. Um, on the like lead process, I guess, does your acquisition person, when a lead comes in, is his responsibility mainly to be reactive, or is he proactive as well? Like that's a question that I struggle with sometimes in my business of, okay, is it better to go outbound or follow up with leads, or better to just work the new ones coming in? If you have new ones coming in, that's great, but sometimes there's just that struggle of where to spend your time.
We do a mix of both. So when we hired him on, we brought him on as 100% commission, and that was an option. We gave them the option to take a draw to where we're kind of prepaying them some commission, or do 100% commission from the get go. And luckily, he chose the 100% commission because to me that just showed that you're like super motivated and you're in your mind, you're going to go make some money. So because of that, though, we expect both to be proactive and reactive. So like when leads are coming in, we're expecting him to call those leads within 5 minutes, if not within 2 minutes. But at the same time, I can't expect leads to be coming in every second of the day during the workday. So we do have a CRM full of, hundreds and hundreds of old leads. Some of them are cold, some of them are warm, that he can just kind of go pick through and start calling. So there is a portion of that where it's kind of like keep yourself busy. You need to be calling somebody.
Yeah, I gotcha. On that note, do you guys use, or what tools do you guys use for tracking things, or CRM, or project or task management?
So this is always surprising to a lot of people. We use Salesforce, which I know is super complicated, and we probably still at this point, a year into it, don't use it correctly, or at least not to its like full capacity because it's such a complicated CRM. But that was something Joe Homebuyer, they make a custom version of Salesforce, so they provide you with that. And it's probably still my favorite CRM. I used it back in my State Farm days, so you can do so much with it. We're just still learning it every day, but that's where everything's tracked.
I gotcha. Is that also where you guys track doing tasks and assigning tasks, or do you use a separate task manager for the day to day?
No, that's all built into Salesforce. So we're assigning each other tasks, assigning each other follow ups. It's all built through Salesforce.
That's really interesting. Like, I know there is complexity with Salesforce. That's what I used to use when I was in corporate. But I found once you get over that learning curve, it's really powerful. And there is something so nice about having everything in one instead of spreadsheets and Notion and
For
an
sure.
email follow up tool and all that. Whereas if you could have one tool that has a track record and won't crash or fail, which Salesforce has, it is nice to have everything in one. Do you feel that way, or are there any gaps that you feel you still might try to solve for in a software tool or any tools?
I'd say the only gaps are just my learning capacity. So we just still haven't figured everything out. So I know there's things it does, like there's ways to track your rehab and your entire scope of work on flips. And I just haven't had the time to really train myself on it. So we're still doing flips on spreadsheets, which is fine for now, but that'll be something going forward. We're trying to get more and more into Salesforce because obviously the more you have recorded in one place, that data is so valuable going down the road.
Yep, 100%. Okay, cool. I guess shifting a little bit, let's talk about systems. The business, as you've talked about and have seen, it can grow with or without systems, but it can usually be a lot more organized and faster with systems. Can you talk about some of the systems that you've implemented, or also how you track the systems to grow the business and make sure that things are being done in a sustainable way?
Yeah, so this year we're in process of implementing EOS, which is a huge game changer. For one, it just makes sure we're all on the same page with our goals and tracking our quarterly rocks. So that's been huge for me and my business partner to kind of get on the same page there. But Joe Homebuyer provides us with a lot of systems too, whether it's all built out in Salesforce or just having a set SOP for acquisition and dispositions. That's been a huge game changer. So as opposed to when I was by myself for years, everything was up in my head, like all my processes were in my head. So I couldn't really bring on an employee without trying to teach them what what I'm just doing every day. But now we've got built out SOP binders, so we can bring someone in day one. They know exactly how to treat a lead day 1 through 7. They know how to do the 30-day follow-up, their 6-month follow-up. So all that's actually typed out. And a lot of that is to help with Joe Homebuyer because they provide a lot of that in the front end. And then we kind of tailor it to how we want to run things.
I gotcha. So let's talk about the franchise. You've mentioned Joe Homebuyers a few times and that you were skeptical of joining a franchise. This podcast has no opinion one way or the other, but it sounds like you were skeptical and then had a good experience with it, and it's given you some guidelines and some processes you can follow. So can you just talk to that, I guess maybe change of heart, and then how it's been being in a system that's sort of pre-built and working within that system?
Yeah, so at the end of 2023, I kind of realized I had two issues. I didn't know how to scale past solopreneurship, which again, I think is that 250,000 range of income. It's really hard to get past that. And I was really bad at hiring employees, which I learned in my previous life with State Farm. So that was where Joe Homebuyer came in. And that's really what got me hooked is when I'm talking to the two owners, Mark and Cody, is they're showing us they have all these pre-built trainings for one to solve the employee issue. So we have all these trainings already built out. I'm not having to make all new videos and binders and trainings. It's just ready to go. We can send them to Utah for a week at the corporate headquarters. They get to go follow around acquisitions and dispositions people all week, get hands-on training, come back to us, and then we kind of tailor them to how we want to do things a little differently. So that's been a huge part with employees. Also, having a business partner that comes from the HR world and recruiting, also huge. So if you could find that in a business partner, that makes hiring a lot easier. As someone who did that professionally for years. But the other issue, scaling. Again, when they talk to me, they're like, "We don't want you to be the boots on the ground guy forever," which is what some of these other franchises out there, like Homevestors, that's what they want. They want you to be working in the business all the time. When I spoke to the Joe Homebuyer guys, they're like, "We want you to be working on the business. That's the goal, to get you out of the day-to-day nonsense." And so that's their whole thing, is to train you to become that owner, to help you hire employees, to help you put plans in place to get to that $1 million revenue mark. And just become business owners. And that's exactly what I was looking to do, because I don't want to be calling leads the rest of my life. I want to have people doing that for me and moving on to other business ventures. And it's worked out really well. So we actually just crossed the $1 million gross revenue mark at the beginning of this month.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Congrats. So
Thank
it sounds like in general, it's been a great experience. So for you, what advice would you have for other people that are trying to figure out how to grow or scale their business? Because one thing you mentioned, and it's awesome that you're implementing EOS. For those that don't know, it's a business management system. Tons of top performing businesses use it, but basically it's just guidelines on how to manage your people and track goals. And I do want to talk about that more. But for someone listening to this, they might be thinking, my business is doing okay. Maybe it's the place that your business was in when you were burned out and you were making good income, but it was just you. And they're thinking, I could either join a franchise, I could join a coaching program, or I could hire EOS. So what would you say to that person that's debating between, let's say, those three options?
I would say look heavily into franchising or a coaching program. I would never recommend EOS if you're solo. For one, it's crazy expensive to work with those people. And EOS just never clicked with me when I was by myself, because it's like talking about having these meetings every week. It's like, I'm not going to have meetings by myself. So the book traction just never clicked until I actually had a team and a partner that we put this in place. But I'd say heavily look into the franchise model. If you're out there, if you're doing good, or even if you're struggling, just having structure teach you what to do and kind of give you a community too. Because that's another thing with the Joe Homebuyer. There's 80 franchises across the country. We're in the top producers mastermind part of it. So I think there's 10 or 15 franchises in that. Just having that community has been incredible too. Being able to bounce ideas off guys across the country, guys who are doing $1 million, $2 million, $3 million each year or more. So that's been super helpful. But look at a coaching program too. I was always so scared of spending that money because I don't know, I was scared it wouldn't come back. But if you join the right coaching program or you buy into the right franchise, that money's going to come back tenfold if you follow what they're telling you to do. So
Yep.
just don't be too scared about spending the money if you're willing to put in the work.
I
So
got you.
early on in my career, I bought I think it was a $5,000 wholesaling ink mastermind, and I spent that money, but I didn't put in the work. I wasn't following the steps, and I got no return from it. Um, so it's really all, but if you put in the work, you'll see the return.
Yeah, for sure. So with where you're at now, um, I'm curious about like your day to day. You mentioned that Mike is kind of the behind the scenes, more or less like maybe operations person, and you're more boots on the ground, project management, day to day. So how do you think about making sure what you do every day is driving the business forward and that you're focusing on the most important tasks? Like, how do you think about, every day when you wake up, knowing what to do or prioritizing things?
Yeah, a big part of that comes from EOS. So every Monday we do our level 10 meeting, which is very strict to 90 minutes. That's part of the EOS program is
Hmm.
time management. And just that kind of helps us figure out what's important for this week. We're making a list of goals or things we need to accomplish every single week, and that helps a lot prioritize. And then just doing the annual goals. So like our goal for 2025 is with us hiring acquisitions people, that's giving me less and less work to do on the front end. But what that's also given me is more free time to go build a referral pipeline.
Mm,
So referrals are free leads. Everyone likes free leads. So now I'm freed up to go do more of the lunch meetings, the coffee meetings, going to mastermind groups, going to BNI networking meetings, and just trying to build that referral pipeline. So that's kind of what my job is transitioning to. And then also just being available for appointments. We do a lot of appointment audits with our sales guy. So I go on his appointments just to make sure he's still trending in the right direction and doing everything we taught him. But that's just kind of freeing me up to be more coach and to do bigger picture items for the business, like the referrals, and then even maybe going to look for the next venture.
I gotcha. And do podcasts like this so you
Do
have time.
podcasts, start a dumpster business, which we're doing. So
Oh,
frees
really?
you up for a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so that kind of leads into the next part of 25 and current business. Is the plan to acquire other ancillary businesses around what you're doing, or like add internally parts to your business, or kind of just keep growing what you're growing? But it sounds like you are thinking about acquisitions or like expanding the business into different areas.
Yeah, it's kind of all the above. So we have big income goals for Joe Homebuyer. Our goal next year is 3 million revenue. So that's 3xing what we did this year, which is going to be
Hmm.
a huge task. And potentially by the end of next year, if we do that, we'll move into another market, maybe Cincinnati, somewhere that's pretty close to Louisville, which we have a lot of those cities.
Hmm.
But also, so I joined GoBundance, a mastermind for higher level entrepreneur people, and that kind of opened my eyes to buying businesses and just starting other businesses.
Hmm.
So we don't really have the capital to go out and buy a business right now, but what we did discover is we can easily go start another franchise. So we started looking into different businesses, whether it's a trades company like roofing or HVAC, and then we actually just settled on a dumpster rental business. So we were trying to find something that was pretty close to real estate, hand in hand. And dumpster definitely comes comes in real estate quite often. We're renting a few dumpsters a month. All my friends are doing that. All the contractors we work with. So we actually bought into a franchise called Dumpster Today that we're launching in January, where we're going to have 32 roll-off dumpsters for rent. We'll start with one truck. We'll get a second truck eventually, and get that business up and running too.
Damn, I love it. That's epic, man. Congrats
Yeah,
on that.
we're pretty excited about that. I love real estate, but then the more I think about it is when 100% of my income is tied to real estate, that scares me a little bit.
Hmm.
And when I see some of these guys like in the GoBundance group where they really scaled and hit that 10 million, 20 million plus, is they were buying and selling businesses.
Hmm.
In real estate, it's more of a slow grind.
Yeah, for sure. The model that seems to be, well, there's different models, but a model that you see there is people that have big businesses that either generate a lot of cash flow or they have exits, and then they can put that money back into real estate,
For sure.
and then they kind of have an engine that feeds their real estate. So it sounds like you're you started with real estate, but you can kind of dip back and forth once you have both running. So that's really cool. I guess I didn't even ask about this. Like we first met through real estate and rentals and flips and Airbnbs. Do you still have rentals today? I don't know if you mentioned that.
Yeah, I've got 22 rentals today. There's a couple, what was it, 5 midterm rentals, a couple Airbnbs in there, and then the rest are just regular long-term rentals.
Cool,
So I
man.
built
Just
I
in the
built that
background,
up over
no
the
big
past
deal.
couple of years, and then I took a break this year from buying rentals.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, just 22 rentals in the background. Love it.
Yeah.
Um, so, as you think about your business now, are there any things that are like challenges or things that you're still trying to figure out how to grow or improve, or do you feel like it's you just need to do more of what you're doing?
Just got to keep doing what we're doing. Um, One of the reasons I did join GoBundance, which I know I mentioned a couple times, was to just get around more higher level people. Because there's a point where I come from pretty middle class, even lower middle class upbringing. So like when you start making a few $100,000 a year, it got real easy to start slacking off. Because it was the most money you're ever making. You're comfortable. My wife was able to go part time this year because we're doing well, but still like there's still a next level we're trying to achieve. We
Hmm.
got to make this generational wealth, so you can't just
Hmm.
stop. And that
Yeah,
that was partially where I realized like, well, if I just pack up and go on vacation for a month, the business stops and dies. So that's where we really realized we have to build this business so that we can go vacation, we can go on the trips, and the business just keeps running and still makes us money.
yeah,
So
for
we
sure. It's easy to yeah, either slack off or just start spending more. Like I
Yeah,
found every time I started making a lot more money in life, even though I don't want to say I preach it, but even though I really try not to, there's just little things that I think it's human nature that we all do that, oh, I can we I think like give ourselves excuses or we justify things like, oh no, this is saving me time. Like let me just buy
mhm,
this, or this is something I've wanted for a long time. Now I can afford it. But it makes everything else harder when there's not like process or just some restraint in that area, and it can hurt what you're trying to do business wise or slow things down. Obviously, there are some times in life when you can splurge, but without some type of like community or people around you, it's really easy, I find, for it to become lopsided in one direction or just more than you want.
for sure. We budget more now that we're financially like stable than I ever did when I was broke, which is so backwards. But it's also so easy to just like start ripping off Amazon purchases now that you have some money in your pocket.
For sure. Before we wind down here, one question I meant to ask earlier, just in the business, it could be anything that you're thinking about lately or something that you've learned recently. Are there any favorite like hacks or tips or just things that got you excited about improvements in the business that, are top of mind or stuff maybe you wish you'd have known months or years ago?
I don't even think it's one thing. It's just like continue learning. I probably read more books now than I ever did. So I'm always picking up new nuggets and just staying around other successful people or other people who have the same goals and dreams that you do. That's been a game changer.
Hmm.
Like before, like when I was solo, I mentioned it was kind of lonely in this business sometimes. I just felt like I was so isolated a lot of times that you get kind of lost in your own bubble. And just the more and more I stay around other successful people, whether that's other Joe home buyers or other people in Go Abundance, it just really kind of keeps that train moving along and you stay motivated a lot more.
And some other people to maybe stay away from, like what we were
Yeah.
talking about before this call.
It's definitely got my list of people to stay away from.
Yeah, it can affect you either way, like being around the right people or the wrong people. It sounds so obvious, but it's so unbelievably underrated when you really have it one way or the other. So,
For
yeah.
sure.
Before we get you out of here, I know you've, amassed a ton of knowledge and learning. Do you do any coaching now yourself or help people looking at get into the game, or is that not really anything you've played around with?
I don't right now. That might be something we'd be look at going into 2025 because I know we get requests from time to time about coaching or mentorships, but nothing on the at the moment. But we'll see what the future holds.
Okay, man, cool. Well, Kevin, this has been great. We're going to link your episode from 3 years ago. It's unbelievable how different it is and just where you're at business wise now and just the way that you talk about business. It's so cool to hear.
So
So,
I'll tell
yeah.
you one thing that's really cool about having a podcast from 3 years ago is again, sometimes you get stressed with what's going on in business, and you're just like, man, I could be doing so much more. This dude's got 1,000 rentals. He's got syndications. But when I go back and listen to that podcast 3 years ago, I'm sitting exactly where I was dreaming about 3 years ago. So hopefully in 3 years, I'll have another podcast to listen to, be like, you know what? I'm sitting where I was hoping 3 years ago. So it's pretty motivating just to listen to that.
That is a great note to end on. That'll probably be the clip for this podcast. It's so true, though. I think about it too, but that's awesome to hear. Kevin, congrats, man, on all the success. Hopefully, we don't let 3 years pass before we do another one of these. But
For sure, man.
if we do, you'll be taking over the world at that point. But we'll have some fun either way. So,
Yeah, you got to
Kevin,
get back to Louisville at some point.
I do. For those that don't know, when COVID hit, I spent about 4 months living in Louisville, and Kevin and I had spoken, I think, a little before, and then obviously during, and kept in touch
Yeah.
after. But Louisville has a place in my heart, and if I see any golf tournaments or every year at the Derby, I always think back on you guys. But I got to get back there, so that might be a good kick in the ass.
Yeah. Anytime, man.
All right, Kevin, thanks again, and look forward to speaking again soon.
Yeah, you too, man. This was fun.
All right, see ya.